Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S.B. Mishra to the show and happy listening.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm excited to introduce you to Gauri Baksi, a self-taught theatre practitioner with over a decade of experience reaching diverse audience across ages. Gauri's passion for writing stories that resonates with children and young people has led her to create impactful performances for adults focusing on themes of parenting and education. Gauri is the founder of the Footlight Theater, where Gauri has created a space for performance, storytelling sessions, and her acting. Her creative practice is deeply rooted in her personal experience, addressing the gap between aspirational value and lived realities, along with societal norms, gender roles, and stereotypes that impact well-being. Currently, Gauri is directing an innovative theatre project, Breaking the Glass Sleeper. This transformative project reimagines the traditional fairy tales through a lens of gender fluidity and inclusivity, challenging conventional gender roles, empowering children to think beyond stereotypes around identity and self-expression. The project aims to extend its impact beyond stage, fostering discussions in the classrooms and curriculums to address discrimination and bullying faced by children with non-normative gender identities and roles. With those words, I would like to welcome Gauri to our show today. Gauri, thank you so much for being today with us and sharing your journey with us. Sometime last year, I learned about you, about your initiatives, and I thought this is a very important subject. And through this conversation, I hope many of the audience who are following our channel will be able to learn about this subject and probably also become sensitive about this subject. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, sir. It is, in fact, a pleasure being here and talking about this with you. And yes, there has always been a hope. And with that hope, we actually think that one day, someday, we'll be able to really bridge this gap that currently is there everywhere. So it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome once again. So to start the conversation, Gauri, take us through your very, very illustrative career. You have done so many things and of course, many more to do. But take us through your journey first.
My journey has been very long. It has also been a personal and a professional journey, but I'm sure here we will focus more on my professional journey. Always have been a theater enthusiast and got opportunities to work backstage with a few production companies, and which led me to actually start a space of my own. What I felt there was briefly also coming from a corporate background, which is very, very hierarchical. Somehow I felt that those lines of hierarchy really gets blurred on when we are in theater. And for the first time, I felt that I was able to speak my mind, not as a child, not as a student, not in any other roles that I have played. But, this here is when I really felt I was me. And that really inspired me to build a space, which is called the Footlight Theater. With the only thought being providing children a space, which is not right or wrong, which is full of imagination, which is beyond any boundaries as such. And here I am. I have this space for around 10 years. I've been working with schools across India. And yeah, I'm a storyteller, a performer, run this space.
So your LinkedIn profile says you are a self-taught practitioner of theater. So what exactly you mean by that?
I learn by doing things. So there is this art and there is this craft, right? Of course, you polish your craft, you do a lot of learning sessions, and I think learning is happening everywhere. Even when I'm watching a play, I'm learning something. So that has been my journey of learning across those years. I have attended a couple of workshops to kind of also sharpen my skills and things like that. But yeah, I do not come from a traditional school where you were taught how to do things. I also feel creativity is something which you have to really, you have to do more to be able to experiment. And I kept experimenting. I kept challenging myself. And yeah, that's why I call myself a self-taught theater practitioner.
Now tell us about the theater production house which you have started. What's the initial vision behind this and how it all started? So tell
So
us the
Footlight
backstory.
Theater is a space, as I said, and we do productions, is what we call the plays. We have done a lot of plays in the past, usually dealing with inclusivity. So Footlight Theater was basically started 10 years ago. And like I said, this space was created to basically shut down from the outside world. So when I go to schools, because we have been conducting a lot of workshops in schools, everything is marked somehow. Everything is very end oriented. So if I start from A, I got to reach to B. And if I don't reach there, I fail. Right. So the whole idea of starting the space was to kind of, take out the feeling of failing, take out the feeling of being wrong, because a creative process, in fact, makes you do wrong things, and it is not very often that you're applauded for doing wrong things. Now, I don't mean wrong by committing a crime. We're again talking about children. And so the whole idea here was to, if I look at something, how much more does that thing have to say? How can my eyes tell more? Yeah. Usually what happens is I look at something and I've already made my opinion about that thing. And then I try to stick to my opinion about that thing, without actually knowing the whole truth. So if in one line I would say, the place was meant to be to facilitate in knowing the whole truth. Yeah. And how we do that is seeing beyond what is seen by my eyes, So whenever we kind of create a play, there's of course something that is written and you are reading what is written, but what is it that is beyond those written lines? So theater actually thrives on the what ifs. And when we answer so many what ifs again and again and again, it kind of shifts the way I have started looking at the thing and how I look at it now. Right. And like I said, the idea behind this was always inclusion. As a trainer myself in a classroom, I have seen a lot of bullying happening based on language, based on religion, based on your IQ level, based on so many things. So how could we actually become one? For a moment. So that is a very beautiful part about theater. That whenever we are performing or we are part of a play, we kind of become this one unit altogether, right? There is no hierarchy, there is no status. The whole outcome is that this is our production. How can we all be together in that? And to be able to build that in the children, and yes, I think I've been very blessed. We have had many opportunities. We've seen a lot of things happening on the floor, people breaking out, people also kind of coming out as absolutely different as how they walked in. So yeah, that was the whole idea behind starting the Footlight Theater.
And what is the significance in the name? I mean, can you tell the story behind the name itself?
It's also, what you think sometimes is not what it always comes out, So my idea was to start looking from down to up. So we
Okay.
always kind of talk about spotlights and everybody wants to be in the spotlights, but actually the journey starts from down to up, right?
Oh,
So yeah, but that's again what I thought, but it never has kind of come out into anyone else's way of thinking. So yeah, it was about shifting the perspective, shifting the light from the spot to the foot. So that's where,
so
yeah,
is it something like you're trying to basically address the root in a way?
address the root also, because I feel feet are not, if you look at somebody's feet, if you have 10 people standing and you just get to look at their feet,
Yeah.
you would not judge them. You would know nothing about them. The moment you move ahead and you look at a face and you look at the color and you look at something, there's so much that comes in your head, those stories that come. So yeah, it was also that, of course, ground, of course, the idea of oneness. So if you look at a bunch of feet together, it'll be very difficult for you to figure out whose feet belongs to whom, right? So yeah, those are some vague abstract ideas behind the name.
Fantastic. Okay, so
Thank you.
moving on, now let us understand from you how you feel that the performing arts can transform learning spaces and what impact you have seen in your lived experiences.
Performing arts can do wonders. Uh, See, because when we start a process, unlike any other thing, we do not really have a beginning, middle and end,
Mm.
right? It is not an equation that we have to solve, right? It is not a story that we have to read and then comprehend later. Performing arts basically is all that is between the beginning and the end, right? And the end that you choose will basically decide your middle, right? So it has a lot. And even if as a life skill I say, there is not necessarily any end or a beginning, it's all in between, and how we maneuver through that passage of between becomes who I am. you know that makes me who I am. So facilitating those journeys with children, so you then become in your own story, you sometimes become a protagonist, you sometimes become an antagonist, sometimes you're playing the sidekick, uh, sometimes you're just a tree, invisible, and still holds that importance. Without that tree, nothing else can happen on that stage. Uh, so it shifts a lot. You know, uh, the status equations keep shifting a lot. Sometimes I'm coming to you and saluting. Sometimes you are coming to me and saluting. So it kind of empowers, and it also kind of, what do you say? It also kind of makes you uh, very receptive of other things around. And at the end, accepting that you're just playing a part, you're just playing a role in the bigger story that is happening. So I think performing arts is a very is a study of human beings, which I think is missing from education today. I think what education is uh, forgetting somewhere is that ultimately, I will need somebody to understand me, and I will have to understand something. So I think to give that very human touch to education, performing arts is a very beautiful thing. Also, like I said before, nothing is what you see. So there is a lot of critical thinking that's happening over there. That, okay, if it's not a tree, what else could it be? So I think it really bridges that gap um, in education. It also opens up a lot of possibilities inside a child, which otherwise uh, they might not know at all that existed. Yeah. So I think it's a great tool. It's a very, very strong tool to be used in education.
Okay, so can you take us through some lived experience of, I mean, you have been involved in this space for a long time now. Uh, though there are limited applications as far as traditional schooling is concerned, but you have been actively into this space of creating those uh, performances and theaters for the schools also. So if you can take us through some lived experience or some story which can help us to understand more about this.
So there are many. There are really, really many, and every day is a story happening. Uh, what really stayed with me was so there was this once, we were training ninth graders. I will not disclose the name of the school, and there was this child who had this rare disease, uh, and he was supposed to live only about 17 to 18 years. That was his lifespan, and I think. Uh, yeah, ninth graders I was working with, completely on the wheelchair and an automated wheelchair, and would take, so he could speak but not use the rest of the body parts as much, right? And every day a car would come and just drop him directly to his car and things like that. And we were all sitting together, all ninth graders, we were thinking what to do. Uh, and everything we tried, we were thinking how is it possible to do it together with whatever challenges we have. Now we have a challenge that the child cannot walk up the ramp to be able to go on the stage. The child is immobile, can't really move around a lot. So yeah, finally we all together, it was a small group of children. I was working with about 12 children, and we kind of came up uh, with a conclusion, and we created a format in theater where every child had to sit at the same level and perform. Every child just had to sit at the same level and move around, because the wheelchair was, could facilitate that movement. But every child was like at that level, at that similar level. So no one was up, no one was down. And that's not even what we produce is not even in question. The whole journey, of lifting that child up, taking that child up on the ramp, making him sit, making him do his dialogues, because he also had slurred speech. And that whole process of 1 month, uh, like I said, it then all became about how can we facilitate this. There are many, there are very few times, when we can leave ourselves and we can do things for others, not thinking that, okay, what's in it for me?
Mm.
The first question that we have is always, what's in it for me?
Right.
And every time, I think every living moment, that's one question that we are having. And to be able to completely forgetting that and letting it go and doing it. Yeah, so I think that was one moment. In fact, when the child passed away, he wrote a letter in which he said that it was one of the best experiences that he could have had in his time. So I think that was a very moving story for me. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a emotional and um, heart-touching, heartwarming story,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Um, so you mentioned that the theater, I mean, the Footlight Theater space is basically focused on inclusivity. I mean, that's one of
Yes.
the major
So
or
even the
main
example that
character.
I gave you is an
Uh,
example of inclusivity.
Exactly. I was trying to come to that actually. So basically, what you demonstrated using the previous example, what you just told is basically demonstration of inclusivity, and
Absolutely.
that has been the theme of your organization all along. But why this actually came as the theme? Is it something that you have lived in your experience that impacted you, or how
Of
it actually came
course.
about?
Of course. I think we have all, have been sidelined, have been neglected, and many times, in fact, when the only problem is that, we have normalized a lot of things.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, uh, it is said that a bully becomes a bully. Right. I'm sure even you might have incidents in your span where you might have felt not fitting into some place and not just being right there, and would have been singled out. It is definitely not a very good feeling. Definitely not a very good feeling. And it has happened with me a lot of times during my schooling, during my, and also I'm a mother of 3 kids myself. There is a lot of bullying that happens due to language, like I said, a lot of body shaming that happens with still in schools with girls who are too thin, too fat. I don't know which is the right definition, but yeah, there's a lot of body shaming that keeps happening. Gender has always been a problem, people who are not fitting into the prescribed way of a particular gender. Yeah, so that was a big calling for myself, and I wanted to at least by doing this, at least my 3 kids know that I'm working for inclusion, and at least they would not be, probably understand what I'm doing and not be a part of this, because it's definitely not a very good feeling. It's definitely not a very good. And when you're talking about safe spaces, and especially schools, and even I would say home now, it becomes so much competitive. Everything is so competitive that I don't feel that a child really has a safe space. Whether it is their home or the school. So inclusion also kind of, I connect inclusion also with a safe space, whether it is my home or whether it is a theater. And the idea has always been to make that one safe space for people. Yeah.
So Gauri, when you do the theaters with the schools and children along with the school children, obviously you're trying to create an impact on the young children. But when they have to go back to home, how do you think they will be able to impact their adults?
Very, very
at
unfortunate. Home? Very, very unfortunate. I'm sorry, but this is very, very unfortunate. I don't know how many people actually even understand that this is important in the first place. How many people really would give it some time also. Though it has happened to all of us. Like I said, it's not something that is new, that just started yesterday. It has happened to all of us, like I said, and how beautifully we have normalized it. How beautifully that it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's okay, focus on this first, we'll deal with this later. Right now it is your exam time, we'll deal with this later. Right now we've got something which is more important, we'll deal with this later, but we never find the time to deal with it. Never, unless it's too late. So yeah, this is actually very, very unfortunate that mental health, also if in a bigger picture we look at it, that mental health is not being given a lot of importance. I keep seeing a lot of memes also, some, like on Instagram, where people say that हमारे time पे तो क्या बोलते हैं, everybody would say I'm depressed, तो उसको हम बोलते थे अच्छे से खाना खा लो. अच्छा, so there's so much fun being made around these things, ये खाली बहुत रहते हो इससे तुमको डिप्रेशन हो जाता है, ये करते हो वो करते हो. I'm saying, yeah, I'm not, some people, it also can be a problem, it can be problematic. And when we're adults, like, I think there's a lot of damage control that we do at that time, because I'm so damaged already that, so I think it's very, very important to start early. It is very important to start early, as much as it is important for me to know that red on a signal, red light is to stop, yellow is to, green is to move. It is important for me to understand my own signals in the body at a very, very young age, and it will only be possible by being able to talk about it. I should be able to talk about this in my family.
Okay, so moving on, and now let's focus on your latest project which you're doing. So tell us about the project, what you're doing, and what support you are seeking from different support groups across India, across the world, uh, because this channel is able to reach out to many across the world. So hopefully we will be able to reach out to many of the interest groups, individuals, organizations who might be able to support in this cause. And that's primarily one of the reasons as to why we are having this conversation today. So tell us about the project and what is the support you need.
So the project is called Breaking the Glass Slipper, which is also a metaphor. So uh, this project is definitely very, very, very close to our hearts, and has taken a lot of our time to be able to build this wholesome project, I would say. This project actually aims at introducing queer literature in school, because we believe that if I do not fit into two extremes of the spectrum, I don't see my reality anywhere. Yeah.
So before you proceed further, can you explain the metaphor itself?
The metaphor. So there is a story, Cinderella. If you've heard the story, Cinderella. So there is this glass shoe that she fits into, and a lot of people try to fit into that shoe, but nobody actually fits into the shoe. But the perfect girl fits into the perfect shoe. So the metaphor is that to be able to be a perfect girl, you need to perfectly fit into the glass slipper. I hope you're able to understand that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, every girl perhaps wants to fit into the glass slipper, or otherwise, not even a girl. I mean, everybody who wants to be that needs to fit into the glass slipper. So it's all about breaking the glass slipper, because there is no perfect fitment
Fantastic.
for anybody. So that's what we call it, breaking the glass slipper. Yeah. So the project actually aims primarily through the play. So we do a play to open discussions about gender. We also aim to make a documentary film where we actually talk about the challenges that the children, mostly adolescent children, face in their homes, at schools. It also talks about various things. It talks about mannerism, it talks about expressionism, it talks about gender. And the third thing is we are all trying to develop literature that could be taken to schools to educate small children, very, very young children, about the age of 6 to 7 years, as to what is the right vocabulary. What is happening is, if they see a boy who is not behaving like a boy, as young as a 7-year-old, he's a gay.
Seriously?
He's gay.
At the age of 6, 7?
7, unfortunately, yes. Children are very exposed to internet these days, so there is no lack of knowledge. But that is something, we are not really very worried about. What we are worried about, in fact, is teaching them the right thing. So we wanted that there should be some literature at the school level where we could teach the right vocabulary, because this is somebody's identity. You cannot be using it to demean someone. That is one part of the project. It also talks about workshopping parents to be able to build safe and inclusive spaces at home, and also teachers to be able to make safe and inclusive classrooms. We're also trying to develop curriculums which are more inclusive. Like I said, if I do not belong to the two ends of the spectrum, I do not see my reality at all, like I don't exist. Right? So there are many aspects that we are trying to cover or discover through this project. And I'm sorry.
Okay.
It gets a little overwhelming for me when I talk about this project. I'm really sorry, but
No, I completely agree. And can you give some timelines as to how you want to go about it? I mean, I believe that you're ready with the script and everything. So what are the different steps in this process now?
so we are taking one step at a time.
Mhm.
Right now, we are starting making the literature that we spoke about, and we should be out with the first story very soon, which talks about how can we teach, how can we not teach, I'm sorry, the wrong word, how can we introduce the right vocabulary or the right pronouns. Uh, the second thing that is in line is the play that we're talking about, which is required, which is a huge production. So it is stopping us from really kind of getting there. Uh, Third thing is going to be the documentary film, which is also going to be a part of the play, also exclusively to initiate conversations about around bullying and what is it all going around beyond the words. Then, of course, we are trying to make about 10 books, and the idea will be to reach as many schools as possible in India or across the world with our literature, uh, or with our play, or with our documentary, and the workshop model. Okay,
If
so by March,
okay.
we should be out with our first book. We've already started our workshop series, which is for counselors and educators, as I said, and we will continue doing that. Uh, by March, we should be out with our first draft of the series of the books that we are talking about. We aim to finish our production by
So
May.
can I ask you something? So when you say book, this is a privately published book, right? And how do you
So
intend
we are
to
looking
reach?
for publishers. If there are publishers who are open to, you know, publish it or help us get it published, because see, personally publishing it is one thing, but getting some a good publisher to print it is always, like a cherry on the cake.
Okay.
You know.
I have
So,
some good news for you. I
mhm.
recently interviewed a gentleman called Anurag Sundarka on my show. He runs a publishing house called Jibra Learn. He's based in Surat,
Okay.
Gujarat. Okay, so next door to you, I guess. And I'm sure he will be interested in what you're doing because
Oh,
it is
wow.
different.
Yeah.
So,
So we would definitely like that support from the publishers to come ahead, and because the subject being such, I don't know how many will be the takers of uh,
mm.
this, but yes, that would be great.
Okay, so my question was, since you're doing it as a private publishing book, um, reaching out to a large number of schools will still continue to be a challenge because of
Big
the
challenge.
government regulations and so on and so forth. So, any thoughts on that?
See, there are going to be many challenges, and we're aware of that there are going to be many challenges. What we're also trying to do is, uh, it is very educative, right? We're also trying to not cross over. There is also a slight difference that we are not also conforming to any gender. We are
Mm,
confirming, we are talking about the time in a child's life when the child is not sure and what happens at that time.
fantastic.
Yeah. So I am not saying that I am with this, I am with that. We are just talking about, like I said, adolescence. I might be something and I might be thinking like something else. What is the time? What is the support that we can give at that time? I might come back to not being,
Mm,
or might go ahead, right? So we are talking about that time. What is the support that we can give at that time? That's where the safe space, like I keep talking about, is needed the most.
right.
And
Okay.
also the literature that we are talking about. Even the play talks about the in between expression time.
Okay. Mm,
Because the focus is children. By the time I'm 18 or 19, maybe I would have made up my mind, and then I have a lot of resources in my life,
Mm.
and a lot of other places which are supporting. But during that 13, 12, 13, 14, when I don't know what's happening with me, I'm not even sure if that's real, it's not real, or if that is my reality. What happens during that time is something that we're trying to really target and focus.
Wow. Interestingly, I hosted Ritesh Rajani, who he himself is basically a gay. He was there on my show a few weeks back. And this is exactly what he explained about his own journey, that
Yes.
during that period, he was not sure why it is happening to him like this. And at the same time, he was not able to confide with anybody at home or with his friends. And
So
he
to
could
be
only,
able to, just to make that journey smooth is what our process is talking about. We are not talking about sexual orientation. We are not talking about any sort of orientation over here. Exactly what you said, just to make that phase pass by without being hurt, without being neglected, without being bullied. That is the whole attempt behind the project.
right, okay. Yeah, I know it is, as you said, there'll be a lot of challenges in terms of executing this. But I really hope that we will be able to reach out to people who will support this cause. Now, can you be a little more specific about what specific support you are seeking? For example, earlier you mentioned that you are seeking, you're looking for a publisher who can help you to do the books for you. On similar lines, can you list
We
down
are looking for
specific
people
support?
who could help us in funding our project, which is the documentary and making the play, and also giving us chances of performances anywhere, everywhere, in India, small town, big town, outside India, because I think this is something which can go anywhere. So helping us, giving a space where we could perform would also be a great support for our play.
Okay.
Schools that can help us bring our workshops there for children, for teachers, and parents, of course.
Okay. And this play is in English or it is in different languages?
Right now is in English, but it will be made into multiple languages.
Yeah, I think we got the essence of today's discussion. And the whole idea was to find a way to reach out to more people who can actually support this cause. And personally, I felt that if I can play a small role in helping you to reach out to more people, that was the main purpose of this conversation. And of course, for me also to learn about the subject. I mean, this is something which I'm not aware. I never had a lived experience about the gender discussion part of it. Of course, I think throughout our lives we face different challenges and bullying and all that. I think that becomes normal for all of us over a period of time. But this particular area of gender discussion is something which I was not aware, and through this conversation I've learned something. And I hope this conversation reaches out to people who will really help out, whether it is schools, organizations, or cultural organizations, even the government. I think there are progressive governments who can actually, state governments who can actually help to take this initiative forward. So before we close it, any last remarks for our audience on the topic?
All I would like to say is that nothing is possible by one person. Nothing will change overnight. Uh, but as many people as we can get to be on our side, to be with the cause, it will be wonderful. And yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you for sharing your insights about the various activities you are doing, as well as the specific project you talked about. It's very important in today's time with all the information exposure which young children have today. And it's very timely, I would say. And I'm sure it will reach out to the target audience very fast, most effectively. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.